Podcast fam, Dan Barousse and Chris Montgomery are the co-founders of Slice Engineering, a company in the world of 3D printing. In 2016, while working with one another, Dan and Chris encountered a problem at work that they wanted to solve with high-temperature 3D printing, but unfortunately, found that the technology available at the time was not able to do what they wanted. After many late nights in the garage, Chris found a solution to the problem and Slice Engineering was born. Hear their story in today's episode 156 of the WHOA GNV podcast. You are listening to WHOA podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV podcast, the podcast bringing businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. I am your host, Collin, and today's episode is being brought to you by my friends over at Gainesville Harley-Davidson. The open road is calling, and Gainesville Harley-Davidson is answering. Their experienced and knowledgeable team can help you find the piece of 2 or 3-wheeled freedom, baby. Take a free test ride and get all of your questions answered. Visit their showroom today just off Northwest 39th Avenue and I-75 in Gainesville. You can also check out all of their inventory at GainesvilleHarley.com. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give them a call at 352-331-6363 at Gainesville Harley. You're not just any rider, you're family. And you guys, they're our family too. So I tell you what, like when you're ready to upgrade from that scooter, go get yourself a Harley over at Gainesville Harley-Davidson. Gainesville Harley, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for your support. And you guys, as we start to head toward the second half of the year, I just want to let you know that you too can also become one of our incredible sponsors. If you own a small business and could benefit from reaching our regionalized audience of Alachua County business owners, entrepreneurs, business professionals, and leaders, drop me an email at Collin@WHOAGNV.com to hear about all of the great sponsorship packages that we have to offer. Not only would you be supporting our mission and building community, but we'll help you get your message in front of the area's best, our amazing listeners. It's a win-win-win. A win for you, a win for us, and a win for our awesome listeners that get the benefit of your great product or service. Again, my email is Collin@WHOAGNV.com, so definitely drop me an email. I'll be happy to send that sponsorship package over to you, and we can keep building this community together, baby. And be sure to connect with all of the great sponsors that make this show possible by going to WHOAGNV.com/sponsors. That's where we have all of the links to their websites. Get connected to the people that are making this happen every single week. This is episode 156. You guys, 156 weeks of doing this. And I feel like I'm a little bit better than I was from episode 1. Wow. So, I mean, I've improved at least a little bit, right, guys? So, anyway, I'm excited to get into today's episode. You guys, today on the show, we have Dan Barousse and Chris Montgomery, co-founders of Slice Engineering, a company that designs, manufactures, and sells core components for 3D printers. You guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you guys. So, let's dive in. I always like to start with the story, man. I like to start with the story. How did you guys get into this business? How'd you guys get to Gainesville? All of it.
The whole story. So I came to Gainesville for UF, studied mechanical engineering, and then had a couple of different options I could have gone down. I'd done an internship with an aerospace company, but I decided I wanted to. I really liked Gainesville. I wanted to stay here, so I worked at a biomedical company. It's in the area, and that's where I met Chris. And we were kind of working on a problem that we had at work where we needed 3D printing. And we really found out that after calling a few companies globally, really, we talked to a bunch of people internationally to try and solve this problem with high temperature plastics. You would use high temperature plastics for like a high performance application. Specifically, we had to heat some plastics to sterilize it before it could go into a clean room. And nobody could solve it. So Chris, being the engineer that he is, was kind of like, hey, let me go back to my garage and see if we can figure this out. And I don't know, 2 years later, something like that, Slice was kind of born out of that idea. And now we have a business launching out of Gainesville. We sell into 30 something countries.
Dang.
Internationally. Yeah. Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got your side of this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's like the shortest story ever.
A very short story. Very condensed.
That's it for today's episode, everybody.
Yeah, that was it.
Join us next week.
It was pretty short. It's pretty short. I guess so I mean, what happened, we had some frustration also with products that were on the market. First of all, they didn't meet the criteria that Dan talked about to print high temperature plastics, and then they would break easily. So you need to change a nozzle, for example, or a sensor or a heater. These are routine tasks for the kind of printing that we engage in, and that was just a real delicate operation. So after breaking enough things, you start to think, okay, well, how can we do this better? And after a couple iterations, Dan and I just thought, I think this can be a product. And that was like the beginning. That was in 2017, and then we launched at what's called a Rep Rap Festival, which is kind of a bizarre thing. I don't think any other industry has like a festival that people travel internationally to go and just share what they've made with a given technology. But 3D printing has that. There are a number of these festivals around the world. So we launched at one that's in Goshen, Indiana, traditionally. And
I'll be going to they're calling it 2020 Part 2 right now.
Yeah,
but it's like the Rep Rap Festival Part 2 for the same one that we launched at in 2018, but we'll be going again this year.
Yeah.
So pretty excited in a couple weeks.
Yeah, so that's like a grassroots, people came from Australia?
Yeah.
Like all over the world. Yeah, Iceland and where else it's kind of an odd industry where we're working with commercial customers, like big names you've heard of, big companies you've heard of, and then all the way down to people who have like, a couple $100 3D printer or a 3D printer they built from scratch. And we're selling like oftentimes the same products to both of those parties. A machine that might cost a couple $100 or a couple $100,000, they're using the same parts of ours. So that's kind of interesting that we'll go to a Rep Rap festival one day, like Dan's talking about, or we may go to a trade show, that's all like suit and tie kind of thing, and
like GE and Boeing are there, and
right,
U.S. Navy.
So like everybody's your customer. You're
Yeah,
selling direct, and then you're selling to the companies too.
It's different, yeah.
I mean, we can definitely circle back to the business side of it for sure, but like take me back. So I mean, are you from Gainesville?
I am. Yeah.
You are, okay.
Yeah.
So you were born here?
Born here.
Lived here your entire life?
Yep.
Did you go to school here?
Born at the hospital that no longer exists right behind Slice at AGH, actually. So
okay.
I went to Gainesville High School, and I went away to school. So I'm not a Gator, but I feel
Is that like one of those things you're like, man, like I got to get the hell out of this town?
Yeah, well, no, I was like, I need to go, explore, but yeah.
So where'd you go?
I went to Duke.
Okay.
Yeah, and I ended up back in Gainesville. That was like right after 9/11, and ended up working in an automation firm, which was just fantastic experience.
So you missed Gainesville that much? You wanted to come back?
Totally. I mean, it's a black hole, right? I mean, a lot of people, they go away and they come back, and
that is a common theme.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people who leave Gainesville end up coming back.
Yep.
Yeah.
I always joked, like with even like former team members, they would like work for me like while they were in school, and then they would like leave after they graduate because it's like, oh, it's like so great, we're going to the big city or whatever, and then they're like, yeah, no, they come back, and they even like a lot of them come back and work with me, so it's been great.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's been interesting to see how that's always that full circle, man.
It's a boomerang town.
Yeah, it's easy to recruit from Gainesville. A lot of people like the idea of a college town, and it is nice.
All right, so, and you guys were working together at the same place. That's how you guys met, and they came across this problem.
Yeah.
And solved this problem.
Yeah, we solved it for sure.
So is there anybody else like doing the same thing that you guys do?
There's a couple other companies that are in a similar, they're in the same sort of industry, right, or the same business as us, but their focus is more so on how do we make the cheapest thing that you can make and mass produce it, whereas our focus has been more on how do we sort of push the technology boundaries as far as we can, and have a price point that makes sense for, like, we have a product line designed more for consumers, we have a product line designed more for like a professional use. So that's kind of been our focus is how do we push the boundaries of technology instead of trying to find the cheapest way to produce something.
Okay, so how big is your team?
We've got 10 people.
10 people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how are you like deciding what to work on? Or, you know, like how to allocate that time? Because it's like, I mean, you could work on, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how are you allocating your time between like what different projects and different things you're focused on?
Yeah, that's a tough thing constantly. I think we constantly have to reevaluate that in terms of prioritization.
Is that like an everyday reprioritize?
No,
I feel like that's the way it is
Every
over
month,
here.
maybe.
Every month,
Yeah.
probably.
Every month?
Yeah. And we set up like we do a biannual like summit is what we call it, but we just, me and Chris and our third partner hang out for 3 days and try and set targets and goals for the subsequent 2 quarters. And then like a 12-month sort of target on things like revenue, employee growth, like what kind of projects do we want to knock out, stuff like that. And then from there, we got to break it down sort of smaller, more granular to figure out what do we do next. And a lot of times those things shift. You know, something comes up like, global pandemic or, some other theoretical, sort of life-changing event. And obviously that shifts priorities, shifts goals around. I mean, if anybody that's run a business, there's always stuff that comes up, and so you reprioritize.
Mm-hmm. So you guys have another partner, you said?
We do have a third
Okay, so
partner,
what are the roles and responsibilities of the partners?
Mm-hmm. So my title is CEO. I do sort of the...
Chris, you guys let that happen?
Yeah. We wanted it to happen. It was a good choice.
Yeah, so
just for everybody's listening, like I've known Dan for a while, so I can razz him a little bit. Some people hear that and be like, "Why is Collin razzing this guy?" Like I've known Dan for a little bit, so I can razz him a little bit.
Yeah, it's totally accepted. Yeah, so I'm more on the sales side, sort of strategic planning. Most of the team reports to me, and head up marketing as well, finance, and then. Chris, you can explain your role.
Yeah, so my title's CTO. You have to have like
a big title.
You have to have chiefs, and that we didn't start that way. We were like, I don't know what, director or something.
Yeah, I think we had like head of something.
Then people start asking for, well, we need to talk to the chief technical or the chief executive, so it's just simpler.
Well, what happens is over time as you grow, like you go back the other way.
Yeah.
Like I tell, oh no, I'm just the head janitor here.
Yeah. right.
I can't help you.
I don't even know who that guy is you need to talk to, right?
You need to talk to the CEO. Let me transfer you over to his line. Hold on 1 second. Voicemail.
Yeah. Right.
I'm sorry, you're talking to the lead janitor, but I can get you right over to his voicemail. That's not a problem at all.
Man, that's really smart. We need to choose who the official chiefs are going to be, and then we could just transfer people.
There you go.
That's smart.
Or like at least with the retail operation, my favorite is like, I need to talk to the owner. I'm like, I think I've come this close to just giving everybody like 1% ownership, just so they can be like,
the owner.
You are talking to the owner.
That would be well worth it. That would be so much more efficient.
I'm full of great ideas.
You should write a book about this.
I might. I just might. One day.
That'd be fun.
So anyway, I forgot what we were talking about. Oh, your role. So
that's my role.
You're
So
CTO.
I'm the tech guy, but we all wear multiple hats, obviously, in a tiny company, and then Josh. We're allowed to. Yeah. Anyway,
What's his name?
Our third partner. He's a silent partner. But he's in charge of manufacturing, actually the machining part, which is the majority of our manufacturing, and that's in the United States. So the machining was an important part enough of our company that we needed to bring in a third person.
Was that done later, or was that done
later?
From the get?
Later.
When we realized the need and that we weren't going to be able to sort of spool it up ourselves, it really made sense to bring in a third partner who had some expertise in that area in terms of having. We both we've worked with manufacturing, both of us, for a long time, but somebody that actually had the hands-on resources available at their fingertips. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the goal there.
So you've been doing this since 2017?
We incorporated in 2017. Yeah. We we started selling product in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, so just a little over 3 years.
So I mean, how did you fund it? Is this all personal money or?
Yeah, it's all
Mostly.
still. I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't taken any external funding yet, so it's been bootstrap, and the revenue grew enough that it allowed us to. I don't think it throttled our growth really too much. I mean, we probably could have grown faster with external. funding.
I want to know that conversation. That conversation, because it kind of reminds me of Darren and Rich over from Infinite Energy.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like working somewhere else. They were, I think, GRU, right? They were there,
GRU.
and then like. You're working somewhere else, but then there's like conversation. You see this idea, you see this opportunity, you see this need, and it's like, how does it like? What was that conversation? Because obviously it led to this, and for them it led to something really great. So it's it's that having the guts to kind of leave everything that you're doing to go and pursue something. That's really like we'll see.
It was
Roll the dice.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it was definitely like that for sure. We rolled the dice. I mean, I left my real job, like a little bit earlier than Dan did.
Yeah, about 6 months.
About 6 months, and but I mean, for both of us, it was like, whoa,
I had a kid on the way too. So
Yeah.
It was like,
Oh, yeah.
I was like 2 months out from having.
So did you guys maintain your job while you were getting it off the ground?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you
yeah.
did?
So we were both
For how long?
working like about a year and a half.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. So we
Okay.
were both working, whatever, 40 hours a week or more on your regular job, and then 40 plus on the nights and weekends and early morning job. So it was a lot for a while.
So it's like really working 2 jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. We were really working.
And you just
2
got,
jobs.
I mean, was it like, let's get to a point of a specific, like, let's hit a target and then,
Yeah, it was like, let's hit a revenue target, and then there was a financial model behind it of, okay, we have to hit X amount in revenue, X amount in sales for a certain number of months to make sure that we've got a consistent trend, and then we're seeing our cost of goods sold fall as our margin increases, as you gain economies of scale, as you produce more and more, and so at some point you hit sort of a tipping point where you can start paying salaries, and so that's when we switched over.
okay. And then, I mean, now that you have a team of 10, like when was the first hire? Was it pretty soon after?
When did I hire?
Man,
It was like
kind of a blur.
3 months after I went full time on Slice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And
about 3
when, like,
months.
what was the role of that person?
Do everything.
That's the role. That's always the role of the first hire.
It was yes.
I need you to do everything
Right.
I tell you to do.
That's what we were doing. So yeah.
my favorite, so I still write the job descriptions, and my favorite line in the job descriptions is all other duties as assigned. And I usually like,
Nope, that falls in. That
Right.
falls in this.
That's right.
it's like typically the duties will be one of these 5 bullets, but then all other duties as assigned. So, I mean, that's just sort of what it is as a startup. We have engineers vacuuming the floors and taking out the trash. I still vacuum the floors and take out the trash, and we'll continue doing that
Lead
for a long
janitor,
time.
bro. That's what I'm
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah, exactly. Lead janitor.
Janitorial
it's in the-
engineer.
right,
That's in everybody's job description.
Yes. And we sometimes, if we were trying to get a big shipment out at the end of the day, I'm still speeding. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that on here, but trying to get to the UPS drop-off point before the truck leaves. So we've had a lot of days like that where it's like run down the stairs through the innovation hub, sprint to my car, throw it in the back, and try to get to the hub, as the UPS shipping hub, as fast as possible to get it out at the end of the day.
So you guys are based in the innovation hub.
Yeah,
How do you like that?
it's been a great
Oh my gosh.
space.
What an opportunity that space has been.
It's cool to have a space like that. Like I always tell everybody, when I started back in 2004, I was like, we didn't have any of this stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And now we have like all of this opportunity, these, accelerators, incubators, and places like the Innovation Hub where it allows you that opportunity to really get something off the ground.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I was a senior in college living downtown in Porter's when the AGH started getting torn down and they were building the Innovation Hub. And I would ride my bike to campus and I would see that building and I was like, if I ever start a company and I'm still in Gainesville, I want to be in that building.
Yeah.
So it was cool to like come full circle and actually have a company in that building.
It's cool.
Porter's has improved a lot since then.
They gave me permission to fly a drone in that building.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for a
Really?
video we did one time. It was
Wow.
awesome.
like to go between the floors.
I
in the
love
middle.
them just for that.
That's awesome. You should do that.
Yeah, no,
again.
I mean, it was actually for the Josh Greenberg video that we did.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a shot where you see like that whole, inside the Innovation Hub, that whole
that
entry.
column, yeah.
You see just the pan up. Oh,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I've not flown a drone in the building.
They probably don't want me sharing that. Gotta get special permission for that.
Do you fly the drones?
No.
Okay, no.
I'm definitely the guy that hires the experts to do everything.
Okay, cool.
I'm pretty much good for one thing, and that's talking on a microphone. Everything else, I don't know.
Yeah, good.
So talk to me a little bit. I mean, did COVID like interrupt you guys? I mean, I always being in that startup, the 5-year mark is kind of the mark that everybody's kind of looking to, right?
Yeah.
So
Are
that's
you going to survive?
Yeah. So I mean, to have something like COVID kind of hit, and especially like, I don't know if you guys have felt the impact from the manufacturing side and that kind of. I mean, right now we're struggling to get scooters. It's like the supply chain is like so messed up. So I'm just kind of curious how that has impacted you guys.
Well, it definitely had an impact. One of the nice things about being in the industry that we're in is that 3D printing really came to the forefront during COVID because supply chains were so messed up, were so disjointed, and a lot of companies were not ready to, shift production. So 3D printing really came into its own in a lot of respects in that you're able to spool things up really quickly. So you probably saw stories on the news about 3D printed face masks or face shields, or they had those little clips that went on the back of people's masks to like give relief to their ears because everybody was wearing masks 24/7. So there were a lot of really cool things that were done with 3D printing. We actually got to stay open as an essential business because we helped out a local manufacturer with some 3D printing stuff so anyway, there was just a lot of cool things that 3D printing was able to be used for because it is such a flexible technology. And so we really were able to benefit from that. A lot of people were sitting at home using their 3D printers or getting into the hobby, so they were buying from us more. So we were well positioned, I guess, for supply chain disruption. A lot of our supply chain is also domestic. It's in the U.S., and so we have very few suppliers overseas.
So that helps.
That helps a lot. We still had some issues, like one of our companies that does plating for us on machined parts also is a medical plater, so they had to basically put our stuff on the dock and say it's going to sit here for an indefinite amount of time until we're done plating medical supplies because we have a critical need. And of course for that we're like, okay, yeah, that's fine, just we'll find another way. But for the most part we had a very successful year in terms of revenue growth.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
How are people finding you guys, like from a marketing standpoint? Because it sounds like you're pretty, you said 30 countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, like how are these people in other countries finding it? You know what I mean? Like, is it just good SEO at this point, or what?
We do have some pretty good SEO. We also run things like Google ads and Facebook ads, but really a lot of our traffic comes from having really, really good customer service and word of mouth. People that are like in any hobby, like you've got some really nice camera equipment in here. I'm sure there's tons of forums around camera equipment where people are talking about troubleshooting or like, how do you adjust the gain for this to get a better sound? So there are forums like that for 3D printing that cover very specific 3D printers. Pretty much any 3D printer with a reasonable amount of sales is going to have a forum. And so if one guy on that forum ends up buying our stuff, tags us, we reach out, so it's really a lot about word of mouth and engaging with the community. It's a big part of my job and really the whole company's job to engage with people and spread the word.
Cool.
Yeah. It also helps when the people who buy in are influential YouTubers, So that
YouTube is a big part.
That made an impact early on, like in early 2019, and it has kind of a snowball effect. Yeah. Thankfully. So.
I mean, is there any opportunity to maybe do like some of the affiliate marketing stuff with those types of guys?
Yeah. So we have an affiliate program as well. So these guys, a lot of the bigger influencers are. If they make a video and they feature our stuff, they've got like links to buy in their YouTube video description.
Yeah, it's huge.
It is huge. It's been It's been a big boon to the business for sure. It's having that affiliate program.
It's cool, man.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Have you guys always been entrepreneurial? Like when you like look back to your childhood, you know, I'm always interested in people who like worked in, because I never did. I was like always an entrepreneur. I knew from college, like going to the career showcase, I'm like, I ain't never working for these people. Really? Wow. Yeah. So I'm like always really interested in the people who like, you know, go and they work for somebody and then over time, you know, decide like, hey, I'm going to go try this thing myself, you know?
Sure.
Or try something. So I'm always kind of curious, diving way back to like childhood, like, did you have those entrepreneurial tendencies as a kid when you look back, or are you just kind of like, nope? I
mean, I guess like all the guys in my extended family are entrepreneurs. So I think I probably had it like from a hereditary perspective.
Okay.
But, you know, it definitely, it feels good to be able to shape the business. So I think I always wanted to do that. And of course, you know, when the business is your own and you're as small as our company is, we can do that a lot. So
yeah, I'll say on Chris's behalf, he was kind of an intrapreneur, if you want to use that term, at the companies where we worked, in the sense that he was the guy like launching new projects and heading up new initiatives, bringing in new technology, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you were too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both were.
Yeah, we both were.
That was a nice thing about the company we worked for, is that you could go start projects and get funding and like make an impact. So it kind of was, I think, I'm sure a lot of people started their own businesses from that job.
So have either of you been recruited? Like somebody trying to pull you back, maybe not from that company, but from, you know, it's like, it's gonna happen.
A little,
get that.
Yeah, it's, I guess, I don't know. Just, I guess it depends on what all inquiries you respond to, you know. It gets kind of overwhelming, like the email, right? And LinkedIn and all that stuff.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, talk to me a little bit about like the future of 3D printing, right? Because I mean, this is an area that seems to have grown a lot over the last few years. You know, is this something like everyone legitimately will have one? Is it that kind of thing, or is it going to be in specific industries only? Like, is there a day where I could be like, I can't find the part for this 1980 Honda Metro scooter, you know, like let me just go and print one? Like, is this going to be a reality?
So I think there's, if you look at technology adoption in general, there's, forget the gentleman's name that came up with the theory behind this, but essentially there's like, tech is introduced, there's a lot of hype, and people are super excited about it, and then like the real work starts because it's gone from an idea to a bunch of people, really smart people, working really hard on it, and it sort of dies off because people think, okay, we were promised flying cars, and flying cars aren't here yet, so now I'm pissed about it, and I'm going to forget that this ever happened. Well, then at some point, the technology actually reaches a readiness level where it starts to become feasible. You've seen that with drone industry. You've seen that with like PC industry, things like Bluetooth connectivity in your car. These are all things that people talked about 20, 30, 40 years ago, but were not realistic or feasible. And it took time for that to catch up. So I think we're in a point right now in the curve for 3D printing where there was a lot of hype. Now, like the real work is happening in terms of diversification of the industry. And of course, the adoption curve is going to be led by businesses, because that's really where the application is, like the cost has to come down through businesses buying these sort of things in bulk. So in terms of, you know, your business, I think there's potentially a time, if there's a payoff for whatever, there's enough 1980s Honda scooters out there that need this particular part, where you could either talk to a service bureau that has a design for this part, and then they just go press print and send you a bunch. Or you could have somebody on your staff that is like good with the 3D printer and CAD, which is a computer-aided design that's like 3D modeling software. And then that person can go, use their phone, do a 3D scan of the concave hole that's left in the scooter when the part is missing, reverse engineer that, press print, and it pops out. So I think is a feasibility at some point that everybody has a 3D printer, but I think that's really, really far away in terms of usability. Because right now there's still a pretty high technical hurdle for sort of the average person that doesn't have a significant interest in it to just pick it up.
Honestly, I'm just tired of waiting for parts to get here.
Yeah.
Sometimes like
that's a good
trying
reason.
to order stuff from overseas, every
Right.
once in a while we get like some sort of old school Vespa or something. It's like,
Right.
man, like trying to hunt down this part, and
Yeah.
usually it's in Italy, and
Yep.
Yeah.
like, yeah.
There are
Let
a
me
number
just-
of people
let me just
doing that.
hit-
Yeah.
Let me just hit print.
Yeah. That is a thing.
That is
Yeah.
definitely a thing. So
Yeah.
one of our really good customers in Ohio is like the sole, and I'm going to forget the name of do you remember the boat company that he works on?
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Anyway, there's like an old Wisconsin-based boat company that went out of business like 10 years ago, and they made these particular, just beautiful handcrafted boats. He's the only like authorized repair shop in the world, and they made tens of thousands of these boats. And so he buys a bunch of our stuff because he has a 3D printer shop. He's got a normal repair shop, but he also has a 3D printer shop where he just prints all these parts, because to go get a mold made in China, one, there's gonna be a super long lead time, and then if he needs to make iterations, he can't. Or if his customer wants, whatever, tweak this angle 6 degrees, he can't do that with a traditional manufacturing technology. Whereas with 3D printing, he can say, sure, tells his tech, change this angle 6 degrees, excuse me, and then you pop it out, and it doesn't change the manufacturing time at all, So it's there's definitely an opportunity for that sort of thing.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, an important part of that is Dan mentioned CAD software, which that's like that's the thing, that's the software that generates the file, right? There are 3D scanners which would generate the file without going to CAD software or not doing much within CAD software, but the advent or the evolution of CAD software from something that when I started my career, it was like, on the order of $5,000, and it wasn't long before that to get good 3D CAD software. It wasn't long before that to get, your CAD software might cost $30,000 and require a dedicated workstation and all that stuff. So nowadays you can get a free subscription to like really good CAD software.
Run it on your browser.
Yeah, run it on your browser, so it doesn't require, like, you could have a Chromebook, that runs it, and that is like, it's kind of the unsung hero. Like everybody, even if they don't know what a 3D printer is, they have heard of 3D printing. But like CAD is, kids are learning CAD that it used to be only engineers or whatever learn, and that then the 3D printer becomes an extension of it. Even if you're not going to make the part out of plastic or manufacture the part, you can just have it crank out a part overnight or in a few hours and get design feedback for whatever the process is going to be. So so you have that all the way up to people who are like operating service bureaus, printing. Like let's say a Ferrari, we just heard the other day, somebody who's going to print parts for a Ferrari that they just don't have parts available for anymore. I mean, you can imagine how do warehouses keep parts for these, antique
1960s
obscure
Ferrari.
things.
Sure.
Yeah.
There isn't one.
I mean, is it up to like the same type of quality in terms of, what I mean? Like
it can be.
durability?
It depends.
Better?
Sometimes better.
Worse?
Sometimes
better, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the process, and then there's all kinds of finishing steps that you can do too. I mean, you imagine if we're just kind of looking around the room, most things that are going to have some level of durability to it, they've gone through some kind of finishing step, whether it's a polishing or sandblasting would be something that you could do. And there's all sort of what's called a post-processing step to kind of clean up the appearance. You can paint things, obviously.
Right.
Most things in this room are probably painted. So all of those things can help improve durability, longevity, reliability, etc. Yeah.
Do you guys like really nerd out on like the engineering part?
Yes.
I can kind of tell. I'm just like, so I mean, so how does that impact you as entrepreneurs? Like, do you find like, are you so is that what you want to spend your time on, is like the actual engineering piece of what you do? Or do you find yourself, oh man, I got to deal with this team member headache, whatever, like the actual business part of it, right? Because I think that's, I don't know, there's just a part of, being a business owner that you didn't realize was part of being a business owner until you become a business owner. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's probably a different answer for each of us.
Yeah, so I would be super curious to hear it.
Yeah. So I love strategy and sort of long-term thinking, and so I get really excited about building like a long-term plan and strategizing, and like how do we turn whatever scenario we're facing into a life-size game of Risk.
Okay.
So
I like that.
So I enjoy that business aspect of it, and I think kind of where Chris is a phenomenally better engineer from a design standpoint and a technical standpoint than I am. But I think where my skill set lies is that I can sort of take the business and sales world and my engineering understanding and have marry the two, so that I can speak to the engineering team, still provide leadership guidance, et cetera, but also sort of build the business and think where are we, not only next month, but also 5 years from now.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like operating the business is a lot like engineering, where it's just problem solving. Fortunately, our team is just fantastic.
Awesome.
We have we just don't even really have, personnel issues anymore. I mean, it's just a dream, and Dan has been a huge part of that, making good hiring decisions. And, we have some things that don't, most businesses don't have to deal with, like people cloning our product or something, especially overseas, and how do you combat that, these kinds of headaches. But we have strategies for all these things, and we have the right resources in place to handle it now, where it used to be kind of like, what do we do? There are only 24 hours in a day, and it's like, me, Dan, and one or two other people, and now it's like it's less of a scramble and more of a just planning operation.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Dan, what is the long-term strategy then? If you spend all this time on this long-term strategy, I mean, what's the plan? How often do you guys talk about it? Like where, where do you see this company going?
Yeah. So we want to, keep growing at a rate that is sustainable and, but also sort of accelerated. We've typically our constraint has not been sales, but it's been more of supply. So we're going to keep building, building the slice empire, I guess. At some point we'll have to evaluate options for what that looks like, with a long-term partner, maybe somebody that's bigger than us. But for the meantime, we're just running as fast as we can. How do we maintain the integrity of the team? How do we maintain the integrity of our product line and keep building? It's a race. You've got this, these signs up here about hustle and grind, and those are
somebody
words
gave me those
that I use a lot. Nice. But yeah, it is a grind, but it's a fun grind. I'm a runner. I like running, and one of the things that I like about running is there's you set a pace where you can figure out how fast can I go to get to the finish line, and only a few steps farther, from the finish line to the water cooler. And I used to do that in high school. I would run, and there were a couple races where I literally crossed the finish line and just collapsed. And that's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of my, I'm going to give it my all and push as hard as I can while we're in the race, but at the right pace to where I don't collapse before the finish line.
But do you know what the finish line is?
I think so, yeah.
What's the finish? What's the finish line look like for you guys?
I think I'm going to deflect that question for a while.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Part of it has to do with how we grew during COVID because the consumer market grew. People were doing their hobbies, and there was this PPE movement that was kind of grassroots, and it became in the public eye, 3D printing. Everybody knew that 3D printing was involved around, I don't know, was it April through June of last year or something.
Like that.
So that was really positive. Unfortunately, the businesses that we also wanted to sell to, like on most businesses, they
bunch of freezes.
Yeah, there are a lot of freezes because it was industry, except for particular ones that were involved with the COVID response. Were kind of dormant for a while, and we're hoping that'll pick back up. So that affects, where we go strategically. We have to see, for example, a lot of the trade shows, they're all going to happen like in the end of Q3 and Q4 this year, and we're going to like see who made it. There's been a lot of acquisition.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of consolidation of the industry, because you just can't have hundreds and hundreds of companies in this business that are in the 3D printing business that are on their own. It's better for some of them to combine, and that's already started to happen. So.
What's the revenue split for you guys when it comes to like the businesses and the consumers, like the direct to consumer?
Yeah, so sometimes that's a little bit difficult to discern because businesses will buy on our website as well. So, but I'd say probably 10% of our business is selling direct to 3D printer manufacturers, where they are installing our parts on their machine from the factory. And then the rest of it is through our website or our reseller network. And that's probably split about 50-50 in terms of consumers that are buying for like a DIY hobbyist kind of purpose versus somebody that has, a business built around 3D printing, whether it being like printing those boat parts I was talking about earlier or something else like that.
Do you feel like there's going to have to be a time where you decide that you're going to have to go, all in on one versus the other?
That's a good question.
All in on like serving businesses and not doing the direct to consumer or opposite.
I feel like at this point the market is still so nascent that in order to generate enough revenue to continue to scale, we really have to serve sort of both markets, which is how we've positioned ourselves. Long term, we'd love to see more sort of sustainable OEM business, what we call an OEM, original equipment manufacturer. So a 3D printer manufacturer, we'd love to see more of the business go that direction, because that's like, we know in advance how much they're going to order for 6 months or 9 months or 12 months in advance. And so that's sort of a more concrete business to manage. So that's kind of the direction we see things going is sort of in that OEM direction.
Yeah, I guess my short answer to your question would be no. I don't think we need it. The businesses and the consumer are they're both interested in the same products for the same reasons. Like they're solving the same problem for both of them. So that's just a really convenient part of our business. We're diversified that way, and that's what got us through COVID. Had us grow through COVID. So I think the consumer part will always be there, and always, benefit from, like, it's cool that we sell to like national laboratories and, military stuff. And it's
cool.
and sometimes we can talk about that on our webpage, like what we're doing, and then the consumers feel like they're a part of all, like they're on the cutting edge, and they are, by using our products. So yeah, they support each other, those two business segments.
What do you guys do when you have a disagreement as partners?
We duke it out.
Is it like, you get, I like to ask if I'm just being very transparent, I've been in a couple partnerships and that didn't work out for me. So that doesn't mean that I would not enter another one. I just like to learn from those who are in them. So is there voting, like when it comes to a major decision in the business, like is there a voting process that you guys have, like to determine like this is the route we're going to go?
So I guess from the beginning, a couple things we had sort of we set ground rules at the beginning, and one of them was we knew we wanted to find a third partner, so there was a tiebreaker. And then the other part of that was we agreed we weren't going to hold grudges. So I think we've been pretty good at that so far. Because I think that's what a lot of times will like come back to bite you. It's like, okay, we went with your thing last time, but now I'm ticked off at you, but I didn't say anything, you know? So it's like, so then it comes back 6 months later and you're like, when you did that, it ticked me off. And you're like, oh, well, you didn't say anything, you know? So I think we've set clear sort of communication ground rules. And I had a third point. I don't remember what it was. So
I mean, with the third partner being the tiebreaker.
Yeah, third partner being the tiebreaker. So that's helpful. Communication rules. What else?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's
that's kinda
our
it.
third partner. He's not just the tiebreaker. We didn't bring him in just to be a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I could have been your tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Just explain it to me. I'll tell you who wins.
You'll take less than a third of the company for that. Yeah. But yeah, he brings a wealth of business experience too, because he's also running he owns his business, so. And his business has some parallels with the business we're in. And it's very helpful to be meeting with him every week, at least every week. And gosh, I mean, we haven't really had any like major strategic disagreements, and it's mainly just been like over the next 6 months. Like how do you move resources? How do you resource? Do you resource like marketing, or do you resource, more, I don't know, how many trade shows do you go to, this kind of thing. It has a lot to do with man hours. Like, how are we going to spend people's time? Because you can't just go on a hiring spree, right? That's, you can go get funding fairly quickly, but you can't go hire quickly,
Especially not in today's environment.
Yeah. And not in Gainesville either. Gainesville's this kind of small town for hire. I mean, you can get interns, right? But to get like full-time skilled people takes some time. So that's the bottleneck, I'd say, is like man hours, and how many, getting the right people. Now we're just to that kind of tipping point, I think, where we're not having to think about everything in terms of what do we do for the next week, because we just don't have that many hours to spend on a response to this and that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's really good. And it makes me like, I don't know, one of the things that, I mean, at least for me, I've kind of used this pandemic as like a good reset opportunity, and it's like, I used to be so gung-ho about growth. So I guess like, for all the listeners out there, I mean, if there's anything that I've learned, and if I think I'll use to kind of coach other, at least small businesses, maybe not like, larger companies, but like with small businesses, it's like, man, how can you grow, but like, grow what's important, which is the profitability of the company, right? Because I think sometimes we just get so hung up on like sales,
right?
It's like, how do you go from 1 million to 2 million to 5 million to 10 million, like, and dude, like, the truth is sometimes those numbers grow and the profit doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, how do you focus on the growth of the profitability of the organization? So that's, I don't know, something that I've like really been thinking about, because now I'm like, all right, like I need to well, I feel there's a lot of companies out there right now that need help finding good people. Seems like,
yeah, we're in that boat for sure.
I see like hiring signs everywhere, like everywhere. Everybody's looking for help, including us. But even then, I'm like okay, how can I, like, what is the single most important position that I need right this second? And then after, okay, what's the single most important? Like, what's the next one, right?
Yeah.
Because there's definitely been times where I'm like, I need this, like, bring it all on, Anyway,
I remember my third point. Third point of why I think this works well is that Chris and I had worked together for, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, something like that, before we started a company together. So I like already knew his quirks, and he already knew my quirks, and
that's huge.
That,
you already had that relationship established.
Yeah, I think that helped a lot.
Yeah.
And our third partner, gosh, I knew him for 10 years, I guess, before this partnership. So
cool.
We weren't unknown quantities to each other. That's key.
Yeah.
Right.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
So what's been like the biggest challenge thus far?
Clones?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I wouldn't say it. That's been the most annoying thing.
Yeah, that's definitely the most annoying.
The whole, just protecting intellectual property. But when it comes down to it, the people who wanted our stuff, they would go buy the original. I almost think that folks who buy clones it's kind of a personality trait. I don't know. It's not, we have such a good following with our customers. The return rate is like through the roof. I don't.
It's like a third of our customers will come back and buy again within 12 months. Yeah, which is astronomically high for the industry.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So I can't say that intellectual property infringement is like a huge. Like, we'd rather not be there, and we don't want that. We don't want it to be legitimized in the form of like another printer manufacturer latching onto a clone. That wouldn't be fun. But I would say that the throttle has mainly just been before COVID, maybe before COVID it was manpower. We just didn't have the people on board. Now it's just, I think we're waiting for businesses to bounce back and let the OEM, what we call the OEM or the business portion take off, rather than just niche hobby industries or people making aftermarket parts for cars or things like that. That's kind of pushed forward with COVID, but we want to see it enter mainstream industry and so.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about manufacturing, when you think of manufacturing scale, you have to make about 10,000 of a part in order to reach like an economy of scale to where you're reducing the per unit cost to a significant point to where it becomes, scalable. So you don't reach that typically selling direct to consumer unless you've got a lot of marketing dollars to put behind it. And we're a very scrappy sort of lean startup, as we talked about before, been bootstrapped the whole way. So, to do that, to reach that sort of manufacturing scale, we really need to work with 3D printer manufacturers that are selling lots of printers, and so they have to buy lots of hot ends, which is the part that we make primarily. So that's really where the scale comes in.
Cool. What do you guys need from Gainesville? What do you need from the area? Anything?
More flights in and out of Gainesville.
That would always be nice. Yeah. More flights.
I mean, that's why I like to ask, because it's like, it's one of those things that, I sit down, I talk to businesses like yours, and I almost get like this gut fear of losing you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm I just, this entire time, multiple times in the back of my head, I'm thinking to myself, is this a company that can stay here long term? What's your answer to that?
Yeah. Yes.
You can.
Our parts are small and we can ship them from anywhere. So
if our parts were not small, it would be hard to stay here.
Yes.
Yeah. But because our parts are 40 grams and can fit in the palm of your hand, we can stay here.
Yeah. We could be in Alaska and it wouldn't hurt us that bad.
Okay. Alaska might be tough.
Harder than, let's say Hawaii.
Yeah.
More fun.
I think there's not a lot of manufacturing space in Gainesville. It's growing a lot. I mean, you even talked about 2004 when you started, there wasn't much here, that's really, really changed. And the investment that the innovation district is making in that whole team. And I mean, Trimark, John Fleming's got, I think, a really good vision for what Gainesville can be.
Yep.
And the whole Alachua area with the Sid Martin Park and Progress Park and the new solar park coming in, all of those things are really sort of transforming, I think, the landscape and allowing companies like us that have a really high growth trajectory to look at how do we stay here. But a lot of it is around logistics, like more flights, more UPS delivery routes, more frequent deliveries. All of those things around logistics are really kind of core to any e-commerce business, and we're primarily e-commerce right now. So
cool.
Yeah.
Who do you guys need to get connected to you? If there was somebody out there that was listening to this podcast, who's the perfect person to get connected to?
No.
Sure.
Besides Elon Musk.
I'm trying to. We're trying to hire an inside salesperson right now. So somebody wants to do inside sales.
Inside salesperson.
Totally. Yeah. Who is technically inclined. Yeah, they've got to be able to talk to nerds like us. And
this whole time I've been sitting here like, how do I talk to these nerds?
Right.
So I'm like trying to trying to hold a conversation about like. It's super interesting stuff to me, man. So so an inside salesperson.
Yeah, so we need inside sales. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll find it. Maybe they'll reach out.
That'd be
to
awesome.
You.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll listen to your podcast.
Gosh, that'd be. If you like message me, you're like, hey, we got an inside salesperson because they like legit heard the podcast, and that'd be awesome.
I'll buy you lunch and give you commission.
Yes.
I thought of an answer to your question, like what could Gainesville do for us? Or let me first say what Gainesville did. Awesome. First of all, having this incubator like we discussed was a big deal. Like for us to get the space that we're in, outside of the incubator would have, in the early stages especially, would have been really, really expensive. UF being just a fountain of qualified interns is big for a startup company, and
we've hired three,
right.
Yeah. 3 recent Gator engineering graduates.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we've always, and back to our previous job, we always viewed internships as, kind of like an extended interview to hire. It was kind of a training ground for permanent hires. So, those two things have been crucial. I mean, if there was like, if I was creating a town and I wanted to have companies, startup tech companies get their beginnings in the town, I would say being able to support them in terms of intellectual property creation would be key. Like, I don't know if there's a way to give like a grant or like assistance with IP or something like that, but that's an expense that hits pretty heavy early for the startup, and it's hard to bear. I think that's why a lot of startups get external funding, is to cover, not only startup manufacturing expenses, but startup IP. And
give me an idea, like what's that cost?
I'd almost rather not tell you, just because some people will think it's a lot and some will think it's a little, and it's kind of a contentious thing in our field also, which is odd. I think that's unique to our industry. I don't know of another place where like they're.
You can maybe Google it while we're like doing this, or what?
Yeah, it depends on what you get, but there's a big open source movement, and open source, right? And that's important, and there's a reason for that. There are reasons why it's a good thing, but the realities of the situation are that you end up being the free R&D department for low cost, manufacturers who don't. Anyway, that's a long story, but I would say that would help, some way to get to at least mentor or guide the IP to the point where you don't have to bear that expense until like 2 years later or something.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That would have certainly helped.
What a very thoughtful answer there.
I had a lot of time to think about it. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
I like that. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Super interesting. Like I'm excited. Like I love when I get to engage with a company like yours and hear your story, because it's always like, man, I cannot wait to kind of see where they're at 5 years from now. Yeah. And that's gonna be cool to kind of see what that growth has been, what kind of path it did take, and what ended up happening. So
cool. You should come by.
Yeah,
we're not far from here.
Yeah, I'd love to. We'll have to do like a recap sometime in the future to kind of see where that's at.
That'd be fun.
You do need a 3D printer. I mean, it would fit in this office. It would look like another piece of your equipment. So
print all kinds of stuff. Especially like, I mean, there's always times where we're like looking for like some sort of intake manifold to like it could probably be printed.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can print an intake manifold for sure. And depending on scooters are relatively small, so it's not like you're trying to print something for a big diesel truck or something. Yeah. Yeah, you could totally print it.
And one of the materials, the most popular material to print is PLA, and when you print it, it smells like pancakes. So like if you put it in this room, your whole room will smell like
dude, that'd be terrible.
Pancakes. It's great. I mean, the other plastics aren't
so hungry like all the time.
Yeah. Maybe it's not a good idea.
So where can our audience like connect with you? Where can they buy products? Where they keep in touch with what's going on?
So sliceengineering.com. Slice like an orange slice. Engineering like the discipline.com.
Where'd the name come from?
So it came to me while I was laying in bed, like a lot of good ideas. They come in bed or in the shower, because your brain's like still for a moment. But yeah, so Chris had come up with the idea for the mosquito, which is our sort of main product. And that's like a Florida thing. So I was thinking about the 3D printing process and how it happens in layers. And I was like, okay, what's another word for layers? Okay, slice engineering. Like we really wanted to focus on engineering being sort of at the core of what we were doing, because we're not just trying to make the cheapest thing to make. We're trying to really put thought and effort and innovation into the parts that we produce. So slice engineering really fit, and it fit with the Florida theme as well.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
So sliceengineering.com.
Yep.
Anywhere else?
We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We've got a YouTube channel. So,
At Slice Engineering.
At Slice Engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, this is awesome. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Collin.
you. Thanks for having us, Collin.
And thank you guys, to everybody who is listening and making the show possible. I got to give so much love to our friends over at the GNV Commercial Advisors at Colliers, Gainesville. If your business has ever bought land, sold property, or negotiated a lease, you know why it's important to have someone in your corner who knows the market and delivers results. That's why you see so many Colliers Gainesville signs around town. The GNV Commercial Advisory team of Colliers Gainesville has the most experienced commercial real estate team in the market, along with access to a global network of industry experts. Trust me, with one call, you'll know why so many businesses trust them. Learn more at colliers.com/Gainesville. And like I said earlier, guys, be sure to check out all of the sponsors at WHOAGNV.com/sponsors. They will also be connected and hooked up in the show notes of this episode, so you can go to the show notes and get linked over. And when you contact these sponsors, be sure to say, hey, I heard you on the WHOA GNV podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa.
Whoa.
We'll see you later. Bye.